gentlemen, it gives me great joy to welcome a truly global voice for both music and sustainability, Dr. Ricky Cage, a 3-time Grammy Award-winning composer and a UN Goodwill Ambassador. Dr. Ricky Cage has performed in over 30 countries, including prestigious venues like the UN headquarters in New York and Geneva. His music blends art with purpose, raising awareness on climate action, global harmony, and wellness. And while we invite him, we would like to do a brief tech check to make sure that the audio is all well and set up for him. So allow us just a couple of moments of pause again as we do the tech check and mic check. But hang in there, stay glued to your seats, because you're going to witness something amazing.
Internationally renowned Indian music composer and environmentalist, a U.S. Billboard #1 artist,
3 times Grammy Award winner. He's won over 100 awards.
Ricky Cage.
It is time to shine your light. Let's do this. It is time.
Ricky Cage, our champion for nature.
I take this opportunity to say thank you to Ricky Cage. Ricky has been inspiring and is one of our champions.
My brother Ricky, I'm really proud of you as always.
We are rolling this together. We are rolling this together. And nothing can remind us like a simple.
And the Grammy goes to Winds of Samsara.
And in the black.
I'd like to thank the Recording Academy. Asatoma Satgamaya Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you.
And the Grammy goes to Stuart Copeland and Ricky Cage.
In India, we've got a saying called as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which literally means the world is one family. Live in peace with all entities on this planet, whether it is the animals, the wildlife, the forest.
It is time to shine your.
Stuart Copeland, Divine Tides, and Ricky Cage.
It's our time. Let's do this. It is
Namaste and thank you.
Climate change is absolutely real. Climate change is human-induced, and our actions are affecting countries on the other side of the world.
It is time to shine your light. Shine your light.
Yelrigu Namaskara, everyone. Okay, the answer to that is Namaskara. Yelrigu Namaskara, everyone. Thank you so much. It's a huge honor for me to be over here. IIMB, absolutely amazing. You guys are the best of the best in this world. And it's an honor to speak my thoughts to you. I think a big round of applause to all of you. And of course, today is going to be really odd because of the shape of this hall. I'm going to have to look in both directions, and I'm going to do my very best to do that and try to look into everybody's eyes during the course of this talk. But anyway, so about today's talk, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to speak a little bit about my journey getting here as a musician, as an artist, and then hopefully we will have some context into the overall theme of today's event. So ever since I remember, I've always been 2 things in my life. I've been a musician and I've been an environmentalist. I've been an environmentalist even before I even knew what the meaning of the word environmentalist was. And I don't remember a time in my life when I was not absolutely obsessed with music. Now, my father, he's a doctor, and for the first about 6-7 years of my life, I lived in the United States of America in this really small town called as Roanoke Rapids, which is in North Carolina on the border with Virginia. It's a very, very small town, and a lot of wooded areas around our home, lots of nature around our home. And my father had this massive music collection. And this music collection was not just, of course it was a music collection with LPs and cassettes and 8-track cartridges, which most of you won't even remember, or most of you have never even heard of before, these physical media of music. But nevertheless, he had this massive music collection of not just the hits of that particular era, which during the 80s was Michael Jackson and Madonna and the Bee Gees and Jackson 5 and all of these other artists. But he also had a lot of so-called obscure music from different parts of the world, a lot of ethnic forms of music, lots of exotic forms of music from different countries everywhere in the world. So I was, as I said, obsessed with music. I was obsessed with my music system, while my classmates, my siblings, my friends were very fascinated by the television and cartoons and things like that. For me, my music system was the center of my universe, and my ears were always more important than my eyes. And I would listen to music all day long, try to pull apart these pieces of music, try to understand the various instruments that have gone into creating these pieces of music, also try to understand the different cultures, the different significances of these various kinds of music. So a lot of my education has actually happened through music. And of course, music and nature for me has always been one and the same. It was very difficult for me to explain that early on in my life, but right now we know that at the end of the day, how did music start? You know, music started off as sounds of nature. Sounds of the birds, sounds of the animals, sounds of the trees, sounds of the wind, raindrops. And then later on, we human beings started imitating those sounds and making them more pleasing to the human ear. Then later on, we started pulling objects from nature and creating musical instruments out of them, like bamboo flutes and boxes of seeds and animal skin as percussion instruments. And it's actually for the last few hundred years that music has actually become academic with notes and scales and rags. But music has always been nature, and if you look at any indigenous population or indigenous tribe anywhere in the world, they still create music which is imitations of sounds of nature. They still create music which is about coexistence, about harvest, about the natural world, about animals, about everything that is good in this world. So this shows that music and nature has always been one and the same, and that's the way that it has been for me. Now, many years later, cut to many years later, as I don't know how it is right now, but when I was in school, it's in our 12th grade that we have to make a very strong decision as to what we want to do for the rest of our lives. When I was in my 12th grade, I had made a very strong decision that I wanted to be a professional musician. So I went to my father, who is, as I said, a third-generation doctor and an Indian parent, as all of us know what that means. So I went to my father and I told my father that, Dad, I want to be a professional musician. I want music to be my hobby, my profession, my bread and butter. I want to do music till the day I die. And my father looked at me as if I was absolutely crazy. And even though my father liked my music and he knew that I was a good musician, he appreciated my musical talents, but at the same time, for some reason, he hadn't articulated it in his head that I wanted to make music a profession. And not only that, he never even imagined that music could actually be a profession. He always thought that, you know, Ricky will be a musician, but it'll just be a hobby and he'll probably be a doctor or an engineer or something like that. So of course, after that, there was a whole lot of drama in our house, a whole lot of arguments, a whole lot of pushing and pulling. I think I can write a whole book on the amount of drama that happened after that in our home for many months. And that concluded with my father and I making a deal. And this deal was that I would have to finish off a degree in dental surgery. And once I got that degree in dental surgery, he will never question me again for the rest of my life on any decisions that I ever make. So that's exactly what I did. I went to 5 years of dental college. Of course, in the evenings, my musical career had already started. I was already doing music professionally. But nevertheless, I went to college for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, I did not know anything about dentistry, but I got a degree certificate in dentistry. And I got a license to practice, which is even worse. And I gave that very ceremoniously. I went to my father and I gave it to him, and I told him that dentistry is a very noble profession. I can absolutely vouch for that with the condition of my mouth right now. But no, dentistry is a very noble profession, but it's not for me. And I want to be a musician, and my father stayed true to his word. Till date, he's never questioned me ever for any decision that I've ever made. He's always been super supportive. But nevertheless, since you laughed at that, imagine if I did become a dentist because I was fearful about my musical career. So after I finished off that 5 years of dentistry, imagine that I was fearful and I decided that, all right, let me do music in the evenings and let me open up a clinic. So what would I have done? I would have gone to the clinic from 9 to 5. I would reach my clinic at 9 o'clock. I would be working on patients the whole day, doing all of these procedures on my patients. All the time while I'm doing these procedures on my patients, the only thing that I would be thinking about is that when can I go back home and when can I play on my guitar and when can I play on my keyboard, or I've got this beautiful composition in my mind and I need to record that onto my computer. I would be a very frustrated professional. In such kind of a scenario, would any of you like to come to me for a tooth extraction? Or any kind of a surgical procedure? Absolutely not. So I guess, yeah, we all need to do what we are passionate about, and we all need to do things that we love doing, not only for ourselves, but for the people around us. Anyway, so then started off my musical career after my dental degree in a full day manner. And I started off by doing commercials for television and radio. And in a span of about 13 or 14 years, I did more than 3,500 commercials. And I was working extremely hard. I was doing commercials for pretty much every brand that you can imagine and their competitor, and in different parts of the world. I was doing music for like Vodafone and Airtel, TVS and Suzuki and Toyota and McDonald's and Burger King, Levi's and Lee and Pepsi and Coca-Cola. As I said, you name the brand and their competitor in different parts of the world, I was creating music for them. I would wake up in the morning at about close to 9 o'clock, and then I would get a brief by a client in India. I would wrap up that brief, that piece of music, by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I would get another brief from a European client, either from the UK or from France or Germany. I would work on that piece of music. I would wrap that up by about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And then I would work on a brief from a client in either New York or Los Angeles, wrap that up by about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, sleep for about 5 or 6 hours, and then repeat the cycle. And I did that for many, many years. I was what they call a studio rat, as in I would just be sitting down in a dark studio the whole day, sometimes sleeping, eating, all of that stuff within the studio. And then it sort of struck me, after doing this for so many years, it sort of struck me that these big brands have understood the power of music. They've understood the power of music, that music is a really powerful language, not just for communicating a message, but for retaining a message deep in the consciousness of a listener. Like the songs that you learned during your childhood are the songs that you never forget. And if there are any morals in those songs, those morals stick with you forever. So I did, and of course, they were ready to spend a few $1,000s on me to create that piece of music because they believed in the power of music so much, and they were ready to spend a few $1 million to actually air that music on television and radio. So they had understood the power of music, as I said. So I was ashamed that I myself have not understood the power of music, and I'm not using music in the way that I should be. There are so many things that I felt strongly about the environment, about positive social impact, about the refugee crisis, about children's rights. So then that is when, as a sudden stop, I decided to stop all forms of commercial music, and I decided that the only kind of music that comes off my fingers, comes out of my head, or comes out of my studio is going to be about, in my own tiny capacity, to make this world a better place. And that is what started off a new journey of mine, creating music for social impact and environmental consciousness. Thank you. Now, when I started off my journey in the direction that I mentioned, of course, I was a very, very hardcore activist, as you call that. You know, a very hardcore, very outspoken, very aggressive activist, constantly making protest songs, protesting all the time. I had a very all-or-nothing approach towards everything. Stop this, stop that, this is immoral, that is bad. So that's the way I was, constantly showcasing doom and gloom and constantly having a post-apocalyptic idea or a thought on this world. But later on, as I grew a little older and as I started traveling the length and breadth of the global south especially, through the length and breadth of Africa, continental Africa, of India, different countries within Southeast Asia, Latin America, South America, all of these places, when I started traveling, and traveling very, very intricately, I realized that the narratives that the West makes for us when it comes to climate change and when it comes to environmentalism actually do not work in the global South. And this is my personal opinion. For example, what we hear very, very often from the West when it comes to climate change is that we need to consume less of everything, which is very true. We need to consume less of everything, and that is really important. But at the same time, if we were to go to the global South, let's say a village which is steeped in poverty, abject poverty, in the middle of Africa, in Central Africa, you go over there, you speak to a family over there, and you tell them, you know, for the environment, we need to consume less of everything. They're going to turn around and they're going to say that I don't have much to consume in the first place. What are you talking about? And then the second narrative, another example would be that let's make a better world for our future generations. Of course, we need to make a better world for our future generations. But then again, you go to that same village and you maybe speak to the patriarch of that family. You tell him that, you know, we need to make a better world for our future generations. That guy is going to turn around and say, what about my generation? You know, what about me? I do not have running water. I do not have electricity. I do not have power. I've got dreams. I've got aspirations. You know, and I want to have a better standard of living. And I can't wait for you guys to figure out this whole renewable thing and, you know, and wait for you to figure out how to do this responsibly. I want to have a better standard of living before I die. So you cannot skip my generation. So then that is when I realized that, again, from my own personal point of view and from my point of view of creating music and communicating, there are only two problems on this planet. If you can divide every single problem on this planet into two major buckets, one would be a problem of survival, and the other would be a problem of thriving, especially when it comes to the global South. Now, when it comes to the problems of thriving, that is basically the developed world. The developed world, they can take problems of survival for granted. They can take problems of survival completely for granted because they've got the facility of flicking on a switch and a light turning on. Most of them have got decent enough housing. Most of them have got access to food, access to shelter, access to clean water, access to sanitation, all of that stuff. So they can take survival for granted, and they can bother about things like climate change and the environment, even though I do believe that that is a problem of survival. But nevertheless, it is looked upon as a problem of thriving. Now, when it comes to the global South, they've got far more immediate and urgent problems. So for them, problems of thinking about thriving is an unimaginable luxury. For them, it is all about surviving. They have to care about things like poverty, hunger, malnutrition, education, gender inequality, gender violence. All of these things they have to think about, and many, many more problems, which are far more immediate. So I started to realize that one has to have a very holistic approach towards problem solving, especially if you're communicating through music. One has to have a very, very holistic view towards all of this, not just because you need to cross over these problems of survival to get to the problems of thriving, but also all of these problems are interrelated. You cannot talk about climate justice unless you speak about education. The people who are worst affected when it comes to climate change are the women, so there's gender inequality built into climate change. And I'll explain a little bit about that later. You cannot talk about water and sanitation without talking, you cannot talk about climate change without actually fixing problems of water and sanitation. So all of these problems are interrelated, and I realized that I need to have a very holistic view towards problem solving. For example, I'm very proud to be an Indian simply because we in India, we have lived in coexistence with our forests and wildlife for the longest period of time. In fact, we pray to our forests, we pray to our wildlife. We revere our forests, we revere our wildlife. And emblematic and representative of this love that we have for our forests and wildlife is one particular animal, and that animal is the elephant. Who over here loves the elephant? Come on, show of hands. Every single person, yeah. Even I love the elephant. But with growing human greed, with growing human need, with growing human population, what we're doing is that we're destroying their habitats. We're destroying their homes. We're destroying their food sources, their forests. In fact, we are fragmenting their forests by building railway lines and building roads in the middle of their forests so they cannot walk around as much as they should be. And because of this, we've got something known as human and elephant conflict. Now, what is human and elephant conflict? It is pretty much a warlike situation between us human beings and the elephants. Now, in this warlike situation between the humans and elephants, there's loss of life and loss of property on both sides. But if there is loss of life and loss of property on the human side, then our authorities have to make the very, very painful decision to capture these elephants and to relocate them. Now, mind you, this is a very humane solution because you're just capturing and relocating the elephant. You're not shooting down the elephant like they do in most other countries, just capturing and relocating them. But this process itself is extremely painful, excruciating, mentally traumatic, not just for the elephants involved, which is pretty obvious, but for every single one of the human beings involved, especially our Indian Forest Department. Now, being a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador, I've traveled around the world, met foresters and forest departments everywhere in the world, and I can say this with complete conviction and from the heart, that our Indian Forest Department is the best forest department in the whole world. You will not find a bunch of more passionate people than the Indian Forest Department. I can challenge you this. You meet a person from the Indian Forest Department, anybody, anywhere in India who's in the Forest Department, you speak to them about a Ferrari car, they'll speak to you about it for about 2 or 3 minutes, and somehow magically the conversation will change into conservation. That is how it works with them, and that's how passionate they are about. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to play you a song that I created, which sheds a light on human and elephant conflict, a tribute to the magnificent animal, the elephant. It's a song in Sanskrit. This song is called Kudrat.
मूलतो ब्रह्मरूपाय मध्यतो विष्णुरूपिणे अग्रत शिवरूपाय वृक्षराजाय ते नमः आयुर्बलं यशोवर्चः प्रजाः पशुवसूनि च ब्रह्मप्रज्ञा च मेधां च त्वं नो देहि वनस्पते मण्डलाय अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः मणिभ्रात्फणा सहस्रविधृत विश्वम् भरामण्डलाय अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः
So just because the elephant is the largest walking mammal on this planet, that does not mean that the elephant does not need our protection. In fact, it is the exact opposite. It actually means that the elephant needs our protection the most. Now, with all this work that I was doing in these, especially when it comes to the environment and when it comes to society, I decided that it would be very important for me to partner with the United Nations, and I'm very grateful that the United Nations embraced me and, gave me the title of their Global Goodwill Ambassador. So I'm a Goodwill Ambassador with the United Nations, thank you, with a global role, and I'll explain to you what responsibilities that comes with, and then we can talk a little bit more about that. So the first organization that I do a lot of work with when it comes to the United Nations is the UNCCD. Work with them very closely. It is called the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Now, it's quite a tongue twister though. So this particular organization, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, it's all about land restoration and preventing desertification of fertile land. It's all about sustainable agriculture. It's all about sustainable land use. And at the same time, restoration of land is actually the cheapest way to combat the effects of climate change, simply because fertile land has got very high carbon capturing capacity. Also, there is an element of gender equality over here because, as I said earlier, when it comes to the effects of climate change, women are the worst affected. Some examples of this is that, more than 70 countries in this world do not have a law where women can inherit land from their ancestors or from their parents, which is quite shocking in today's day and age. And because of this, when land becomes desertified or land becomes uncultivable, then what happens is the land is sold and the woman gets nothing. And if land becomes desertified, then the family, the male, the patriarch of the family usually travels to a big city, leaves behind the family, starts a new family in the big city, and the woman is left behind. So there are numerous such examples where climate change affects women in a very, very terrible manner, in a very unreasonable manner. So that's what the UNCCD looks at. The second organization is UNICEF. UNICEF, as most of us know, UNICEF is an organization which is for protecting children's rights. The mission statement of the UNICEF is very simple, that we protect children even before they were born. We take care of them all through their adolescence till the time they become adults. And even after they become adults, we do not give up on them. That is the mission statement of UNICEF. I work on sustainability and music education programs for children across the world when it comes to UNICEF. I've created a project known as My Earth Songs, which is basically children's rhymes on sustainability. Currently, we have over 30 rhymes, and these rhymes are for grades 1 to 8. They're already used in, I think, more than about 150 or 200,000 schools all over the world. And so the songs are very positive children's rhymes, which are based on sustainability. We've got a song on plastics. We've got a song on teaching children what a carbon footprint is. We've got a song on the rhinoceros, on the elephant, various songs. And the idea is that all these songs are extremely positive. All these songs are very energetic, no doom and gloom. Everything is very happy. And they are, the dream is to actually replace the current rhymes that are being taught in school because, as we all know, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star teaches us nothing about stars. And Baba Black Sheep teaches us nothing about sheep. And of course, that song has got other problems. But nevertheless, that is what we're trying to do with UNICEF right now. The third organization is the World Health Organization, the WHO. With the WHO, I work on air pollution initiatives and campaigns. Because what has been figured out is that when it comes to communicating air pollution, which leads to climate change, it's not very effective to showcase air pollution from a communication standpoint of view as being an environmental issue. It's much more stronger if it is shown as a health issue. Like, for example, a person would not bother about a polar bear who may or may not die after 7 years. I mean, I'm just making a joke over here, but nevertheless, but if you showcase that air pollution is causing lung cancer, asthma, bronchitis, it's like smoking this many cigarette packs a day for a child in a particular city, then people are far more agreeable to actually respond to that threat and to bring about change. So we are showcasing through the WHO what is air pollution, and air pollution is a health issue. The second thing that I do with the WHO is the Make Listening Safe initiative. This might be interesting to all of you because according to the research done by the WHO, 1.1 billion young people are at a risk of hearing loss because of the way they listen to music. Isn't that shocking? Because of the way they listen to music. It could be through earphones, it could be going to concerts, headphones, listening to loud music systems, whatever it is. But by listening to music, 1.1 billion young people are at a risk of hearing loss. So what we do on the board of that Make Listening Safe initiative is that we come up with recommendations for governments to follow so that governments can take this into law, and many European countries have already taken our recommendations into law. So that is about the work that I do with the United Nations. That's pretty much, and I forgot one more organization, the UNHCR, that is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. I work a lot with refugees, especially refugees who have been forced to leave their country because of the music that they create, or because they're just musicians. It can be any kind of music. So there are refugees who India has embraced and given them a new home. These are refugees from Afghanistan, from Myanmar, from Sri Lanka, and from Cameroon. And these are brilliant musicians, but unfortunately, they're not able to concentrate much on their art because obviously they've got other problems to think about. And more importantly, sometimes they're creating art in a certain genre or in a certain language that does not work in India. Because they are coming from their country and they're playing traditional music of their own country. So that is why it becomes difficult. So what I do is that I try to encourage them. I do collaborations. I try to give them opportunities, do webinars and things like that, and work very closely with them so that they continue being musicians and they continue expressing themselves now that they're in India and they are allowed to express themselves when they were not allowed to express themselves in their own countries. So now I'll come to my next project. I'm going to quickly tell you about that before I conclude today's talk. Gandhi, that is, Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, he's been a hero of mine for pretty much ever since I remember. He's been a very strong hero and a very strong personality in my life. Especially his ideals of nonviolence, of peace, of tolerance are even more relevant in today's time than it ever was. And Gandhi not only was a great figure in India, but he is also a very inspiring figure all over the world. Martin Luther King Jr., the great folk hero of the United States of America, he has said many, many times that his entire civil rights movement was based on Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolence movement. Then you have Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela has said several times that his entire fight against apartheid was based on Mahatma Gandhi's Satyagraha movement. Obama has said that he would have never been president of America if not for the teachings of Gandhi. Now, cut to last year. Now, there is this amazing gentleman in India, Kailash Satyarthi, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Kailash Satyarthi, again, another hero of mine. Kailash Satyarthi won the Nobel Peace Prize for various reasons. One among them is that he himself, in his personal capacity, has freed over 100,000 children all over the world from child slavery and child labor. And he is also responsible for the writing of legislation against child slavery and child labor in over 70 countries on this planet. That is how great this guy is. I had the opportunity to do a concert tour with him last year, where we did 4 cities as a fundraiser concert tour rather. And he would speak for 30 minutes, I would perform for 90 minutes. It was a beautiful concert series, very successful. And we both got to talk to each other a lot during that time because we were traveling with each other. He became like an older brother figure to me. And during that time, we decided that let's make an album on Gandhi because he's based his entire life on the ideals of Gandhi. So let's make an album on Gandhi. So what we did, we brought together 200 musicians from 40 countries. From pretty much every corner of the globe, we brought in musicians. We created this album called Gandhi Mantras of Compassion, and we hope that this album will create the desired impact. I'm going to play you a short 1-minute trailer of that album.
Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated on January 30th, 1948. But the assassin did not know that some people never die. Gandhi is indeed one of them.
not be standing before you today as President of the United States had it not been for Gandhi and the message he shared and inspired with America and the world.
I became deeply influenced by Gandhi.
He was an inspiration to millions of people, and the extraordinary thing always seems to me that he is currently still an inspiration.
So the album itself is available on all platforms for free to listen to. Please check it out. Please share it if you can. And let's ensure that the album has its desired impact. Now, with all the problems that we face on our planet, and there are so many problems that we face, we discussed some of them over here. Environmental problems like climate change, species extinction, deforestation, air pollution, plastics pollution, so many social issues like poverty, hunger, malnutrition, gender inequality, gender violence, water, sanitation, so many issues. I believe that the biggest threat to us as a human species is the constant thought that we have that somebody else will make a difference. You know, we're always waiting for governments to make a difference, intergovernmental bodies, corporations, leaders to make a difference, when the truth is that the only way we can actually bring about meaningful change is if we change our own behaviors. Now, we constantly talk about changing the world, but we very rarely talk about changing ourselves. And that's not because we are evil people or we are bad people. It's just simply because of the systems around us, we have not empowered ourselves to believe that the small, tiny, incremental changes that we can make within our own tiny capacities actually matter. But actually, that's all that matters. We always feel that, you know, if I stop using single-use plastics, what difference will it make? Or if I reduce my consumption of fossil fuels, what difference will it make? Or if I'm kind to people, what difference will it make? But it does make a huge difference. All that we need to do is take up these small, tiny, incremental changes and not be hard on ourselves while we are doing it. Just take up these things and, you know, and just go with it. Now, so how do we encourage everybody? How do we encourage all of us to, you know, as they say, be the change that we want to see in this world? How do we encourage all of us to, because all of us are aware of all of these problems that I mentioned. Everybody knows that there is something known as climate change. Everybody knows that species are going extinct. Everybody knows that single-use plastics is bad. Maybe not at an analytical or a scientific level, maybe not at a statistical level, but everybody knows in some way that, you know, that something's going wrong. So the question, the golden question is not about awareness, because everybody is aware. The golden question is about how do we convert that awareness into actually taking action within our own lives. Because we are just not taking action within our own lives. Now, we can make 1,000 speeches like I'm doing right now, and it'll make no difference to anybody's behaviors. We can showcase a ton of scientific data, which is extremely important, but it'll not change behaviors. What is needed is for artists, storytellers, musicians, to actually take these complex ideas, thoughts, and speeches, and to simplify it through the emotional language of music. In my case, it's music, but it can be other art forms. I'm partial to music. But simplify it into the emotional language of music so that you're hitting the hearts and souls of people. And when you hit the hearts and souls of people on an emotional way, that is what will bring about meaningful and long-lasting change. And that is what I believe is my mission in life. Now, to conclude, I'd like to say that I'm going to play you a short piece of music, a 60-second piece of music, or let's say 53 seconds, and you'll know what it is. So basically the first piece of music that I ever learned as a child, the first piece of music that I ever played on the piano, the first piece of music that I ever played on the guitar was this beautiful piece of music known as the National Anthem of India. Okay, and this is my favorite piece of music. And it has always been my dream to record the Indian National Anthem with a full-fledged orchestra, with a Western orchestra. Now, of course, why a Western orchestra when it is the Indian National Anthem? And the answer is that whenever I see an orchestra, and of course I've seen an orchestra even in Swamiji's place, the thing is that whenever I see an orchestra, and I've worked with orchestras all over the world, whether it is in USA or in different parts of Europe or in the UK, wherever, I've always noticed one thing, that An orchestra has got various instruments. Like, for example, an orchestra has got a violin, which is a soft instrument. Then the orchestra has got a timpani, which is a loud percussion instrument. Then you've got a flute, soft instrument. Then you've got a tuba. If you're sitting in the same room with a tuba, you can go deaf listening to it. It is that loud. It's got a harp, soft instrument. It's got all of these different instruments, soft angelic instrument, the harp. It's got a piano, very dynamic instrument. It's got all of these instruments, and each instrument is not trying to be another instrument. A violin is staying in its own lane, and it's being a violin. A violin is not trying to be a timpani. A timpani is not trying to be a harp. A harp is not trying to be a tuba is not trying to be a bassoon. Every instrument is maintaining its own unique identity. And yet, when all of these unique musical instruments maintaining its own unique identity, when all of these instruments come together, they come together in beautiful harmony. And the problem is that we have been we've got a very misguided view as to what oneness is. Because if you look at Hinduism, if you look at Buddhism, you look at Islam, you look at Christianity, everybody's got their definition of oneness. And we have always have a misguided approach towards thinking of oneness because we think oneness means uniformity, that everybody has to be the same. But that's not true. Oneness means that everybody maintains their own unique identity, ideologies, languages, culture, religion, all of that stuff. But at the same time, everybody comes together beautifully, harmoniously as one, and everybody just works together really, really beautifully. And that is what an orchestra is. That is what India is. You drive, all of us know you drive 200 kilometers in any direction, you'll find a new language, you'll find a new dialect, a new culinary taste, maybe even a religion, maybe people look different over there. But the thing is that we are such a diverse country, but somehow we work together so beautifully, and that is what an orchestra is. So I went to Abbey Road Studios, my favorite studio, and recorded over there many, many times. Lots of my albums have been recorded over there, iconic studio. And then I recorded with my favorite orchestra, that is the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, recorded with a 100-member orchestra, 100 of the finest musicians in the United Kingdom. And I conducted them performing the Indian national anthem. But there was a little bit of subtext over there too, because it's a 100-member British orchestra performing after ruling us for 200 years. It was fun to have an Indian composer conduct them performing the Indian national anthem when they would imprison us for actually singing the national anthem. So that was poetic justice, and of course the irony was not lost on them because I mentioned this to them, and you'll see that now. And they gave their very, very best because I mentioned this to them. And they really gave their heart and soul into this recording. As I said, I've collaborated with them multiple times in the past, but this was their best ever performance. So I'm going to conclude this with the Indian national anthem. If you would please indulge me, let us all rise for the Indian national anthem. Namaste everyone again. Today we're going to be recording the National Anthem of India. So the National Anthem of India is that one song that brings together our very, very diverse nation. In fact, the first piece of music that I ever learned as a human being was the Indian National Anthem, even before I learned any lullabies. And today, with over 100 musicians over here, this will be the largest symphony orchestra to ever record the Indian National Anthem. And I'm really glad that it is my favorite orchestra in the whole world, that is the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. So, British and Indian relationship has never been better than what it is today. And after ruling us for over 200 years, I think this is the best gift. This is the best gift that, a British orchestra like yourself, or such an amazing British orchestra, could give 1.4 billion Indians like me. So again, thank you so much for this huge opportunity, this huge honor, and let us give it our very, very best. Let us make this the best possible gift that we can give all of us Indian people, and let's begin. Thank you so much. And always end with the Indian national anthem, then you end with a standing ovation. Thank you. You're amazing.
Thank you, Dr. Ricky Cage. On a personal note, when a lover of words is left at a loss of words, magic happened. Thanks for creating magic. Thank you, Dr. Cage, for that thought-provoking keynote. Your vision of music as a tool for transformation has left us inspired and energized. Thanks a ton. May I now invite Mr. Naveen Kumar, PGP 99, to kindly join us on stage and present Ricky a token of our appreciation. Gentlemen, let the applause keep coming, please.